In the misty heart of medieval Europe, kingdoms rose and fell not with ceremony, but with the clash of steel and the whispers of betrayal. Today, we journey deep into the forgotten chaos of the Frankish Civil War, a brutal conflict that forged legends, shattered empires, and shaped the destiny of a continent. Stay with us until the end, and immerse yourself in a world where power was seized, not inherited. If you love stories that breathe life into history's lost battles, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell, because there are many more untold tales waiting to be uncovered. The Frankish kingdoms groaned under the weight of ambition and betrayal. Ancient forests, their leaves aflame in reds and golds, stretched beyond the misty rivers, sheltering villages that whispered of rebellion. Monasteries stood silent, their bells rusted and still, while noblemen sharpened swords by hearth fires, their shadows dancing like omens against crumbling stone walls. It was 715, and the throne of the Franks, once mighty under Pepin of Herstal, lay empty, a gilded chair in a palace of fear. Pepin was dead. His sons fought like wolves over scraps of power, and over them all loomed the question, who would rule the Franks? Charles, known later as Charles Martel, was the illegitimate son of Pepin, born not of a queen but of a concubine. Yet in his veins surged the blood of conquerors. In the dim halls of his childhood, he had learned that power was not given, it was seized with iron and fire. Across the rivers and hills, in the old capital of Neustria, the nobility rallied around Ragnfrid, the mayor of the palace. His banners, green and white, flew from timber towers and across muddy fields, carried by men who dreamed of a return to an older, freer Francia. The Frisians in the north, proud and untamed, stirred restlessly, sensing an opportunity. The Saxons beyond the dark forests sharpened axes against oaths they had sworn only reluctantly. The kingdom had become a tapestry of shifting loyalties. Villages were swallowed by smoke and screams, their thatched roofs burning against the twilight skies. Nobles fled to monasteries, clutching relics and weeping prayers that echoed hollowly across empty cloisters. Trade roads, once busy with wagons and laughter, now lay abandoned, haunted only by crows and desperate men. In the valley of Galone, where the Rhine flowed like a silver blade through the land, Charles made his stand. At first, he was betrayed, cast into chains by rivals who feared the fire in his heart. Cold stone walls and the stink of damp earth were his companions. But iron could not hold a storm. In the dead of night, Charles escaped, slipping through the darkness like a ghost, gathering men, peasants, disinherited nobles, warriors with nothing to lose. He forged an army not from wealth but from loyalty. In tattered cloaks and battered mail, his soldiers followed him into the teeth of winter. The Battle of Amblève in 716 was his first stroke. Hidden among the woods and hollows, Charles ambushed Ragnfrid's forces. Rain lashed the fields. Mud swallowed horses and men alike. Spears glinted in the grey light as Charles's warriors struck with savage fury. When the sun set, it was not Ragnfrid's banners that flew over the field, but Charles's, the simple, battered cloth, soaked in the blood of his enemies. News spread like wildfire. In smoky taverns and lonely farmsteads, old men whispered, Charles rides. Charles wins. Hope, like the first breath of spring after a cruel winter, began to thaw the hearts of the Franks. But wars are not won in a single battle. In 717, Charles seized Austrasia, his homeland, and marched westward, like a gathering storm. At Vincy, the armies clashed again, beneath a sky the colour of iron. The ground shook with the thunder of hooves, and the screams of dying men rose like a grim hymn. When the day ended, Ragnfrid fled, and Charles stood victorious. Yet even as he secured the east, the south seethed with rebellion. Duke Eudo of Aquitaine watched with wary eyes from beyond the Garonne. The Frisians in the north, restless under Frankish rule, plotted in their misty marshes. Every victory bred new enemies. Charles knew he must move swiftly or be crushed under the weight of a dozen rising threats. He crowned Chilperic II as king, an empty puppet to appease tradition, but it was clear to all who truly ruled. In the grand halls of Metz and the battered streets of Reims, the name Charles echoed from stone to stone. By 718, Charles had fought not only battles of swords, but battles of whispers, forging alliances where steel alone cannot reach. At Soissons, he crushed the final rebellion of Ragnfrid, scattering the remnants of his army like leaves before a gale. The Frankish realms, battered and bleeding, bent the knee. The civil war was over. In the smoke-stained chapels, monks recorded the names of the dead with trembling hands. Widows wept at empty hearths. Fields once golden with wheat grew wild with thorns. Yet from the ashes, something new stirred, the kingdom not of splintered tribes, but of a people united under one iron will. Charles would go on to be remembered as Martel, the Hammer. The man who, years later, would stand against the tide of the Saracens at Tours, shaping the fate of all Europe. But it began here, in the blood-soaked fields and broken thrones of the Frankish Civil War. And though the banners have long since rotted, and the voices of those years have fallen silent, The stones of old cathedrals and the worn paths through the forests still remember. They still whisper the story of the time when the world was decided not by kings, but by those who dared to seize destiny itself. As the last embers of civil war faded into the long shadow of time, the Frankish world stood forever changed. From broken crowns rose a legend, Charles Martel, the hammer that would one day save Europe. Thank you for joining us on this journey through blood, fire, and destiny. If this story stirred your imagination, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share your thoughts below. What moments of forgotten history would you like to see brought back to life next? Until then, keep exploring, because the past is never truly gone. It waits for those willing to remember.